For the first installment of Commissioner Dre, I am extremely excited in bringing this kind of my vantage point of how I see things, decisions that I would make if I was the commissioner. Today or yesterday, we found out some huge news. And it's huge because it is, when you touch historical monuments, it's a real thing. Like people associate such great times or bad times or just times with historical things. And when you touch those things, you kind of shake shit up a bit. And so coming out of LA today, we had such huge news that Staples Center will no longer be the Staples Center, and it will be the Crypto.com Arena. Interesting. Very interesting. Because sometimes in life, and especially in sports, certain things outgrow the actual thing that sits above it. And so, for instance, the Staples Center severely outgrew the store Staples. Like, if you're anywhere in the world and you say, I'm going to Staples, and especially in LA, but if you're anywhere in the world and you say, I'm going to Staples, people are going to think you are headed to LA to go to a Lakers game at the Staples Center, to go to a concert at the Staples Center, to do something at the Staples Center. If you say, I'm going to Staples. I think another example of that was Oracle Arena, where I had the luxury of winning 3 championships or playing in that building and winning 3 championships. Most people doesn't even know what the company Oracle does. But yet if you say, oh yeah, I'm going to Oracle, they're never going to think you're going to the company headquarters or something for the company. They're going to think you're going to Oakland, California, and going to the stadium that the Warriors played at. And so sometimes you have those situations happen, and it fucking sucks. It sucks. It absolutely sucks when all of a sudden it comes up and there's a name change, because those names grow with those places. But the reality is, for instance, the Lakers signed a 20-year deal. In 20 years, who knows if Crypto.com will be the place, and there will be some other big company that can afford the name and rights. And that's where Commissioner Dre comes in at, because what's the solution? Like, again, people tie like all these memories to these places. One we can all tie to Staples is Kobe played there. Like Kobe played at Staples. Kobe didn't play at Crypto.com Arena. And so like just that whole thing, it's just like it really does suck. So what is the solution? It's interesting because you ask yourself, well, should these arenas be named after companies? Because they're forever changing the landscape of America and our finances and Wall Street and companies and new companies and startups and the next Facebook and all of these companies. Like, it's forever constantly changing. And so we'll see more of this. This is just the latest, greatest, huge announcement that we've seen. But we'll see more of this, and more people will lose that sacred name that has grown with this place and with the successes of these teams and events that take place in these certain stadiums and arenas. And so the solution, I don't know, is it to name arenas after players? Well, Commissioner Dre, you can't do that because a player isn't paying $700 million for 20 years. As a commissioner, your number one job is to grow this league, to grow the pot, to grow the revenue, to take this league to new places. And so you're kind of faced with the task of, do we change something that's so sacred and that's become so big and like a staple, or do we stay with the name and not capitalize on $700 million of revenue? As a commissioner, you must capitalize on the $700 million of revenue, as it is nearly impossible to make up $700 million of revenue. But it's tough, and it never sits well with anyone. No one wants to say they're going to crypto.com arena, not because crypto.com is bad, but because Staples is Staples. It's historic. I grew up watching Kobe and Shaq win championships at Staples. It sucks. But as commissioner, you must take the $700 million. So kudos to the Lakers and Jeanie Buss and Linda Rambis and getting a $700 million naming rights for a stadium, because it is extremely impressive. So shout out to those two women continuing to do great things with that organization. It's a beautiful thing. But as a fan, the fan in me, I step outside, I take my commissioner hat off. The fan in me, you hate to see Staples go. You hate to see the name Oracle go, because they just become so important to the makeup of these teams, to the history of these teams. You just hate to see it go.